to ComfortTV.channel news, bringing you verified and balanced news from Nigeria and around the world. I am Faith Kevin. Thank you for joining us. In the headlines today, federal government directs vice chancellors to submit attendance and compliance reports as varsity strike begins. Governor Sanwo-Olu and Sultan of Sokoto reiterate the role of traditional rulers in national unity. Federal government votes 6.3 billion naira interest-free loans to 21,000 flood disaster victims. Deputy Speaker Kalu called for policies promoting girl-child inclusion. Minister tasks insurance operators on climate change impact. Lagos to crack down on illegal land reclamation. On business news, bank deposits with CBN rises 568% to 146.13 trillion naira in 9 months. NNPC hike fuel price to 955 naira per litre. On the foreign scene, deadly protests forced Madagascar's president to flee. President Zelensky to meet President Trump in Washington on air defense. And on sports, Zidane speaks on France's job ambition, and England boss Tuchel urges Barcelona loanee not waste his potential. Now the news. The federal government has reaffirmed its resolve to implement the no work, no pay policy as the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU began a nationwide strike. It also directed vice chancellors of all federal universities to ensure full compliance with labor law. The directive was contained in a circular signed by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, and distributed to key education stakeholders, including the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Pro-Chancellor of Federal Universities, the Accountant General of the Federation, and the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, NUC. According to the circular, the government expressed disappointment over the union's decision to embark on strike, despite ongoing engagement efforts. The government warned that it will no longer condone disruptions to the academic calendar. Dr. Alausa directed vice chancellors to immediately conduct roll calls and physical headcounts of academic staff in their institutions. They are to compile detailed reports identifying those present and performing their duties and those absent due to the strike. Salaries of staff who fail to work are to be withheld for the duration of the industrial action. The minister, however, clarified that members of the Congress of University Academics, CONUA, and the National Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA, who were not participating in the strike, should continue to receive their full entitlements. ASU had on Sunday declared a 2-week warning strike beginning Monday, October 13, to press home its demands, including the conclusion of the renegotiated 2009 federal government ASU agreement, release of withheld salaries, revitalization funding for public universities, payment of promotion arrears, and settlement of outstanding salary differentials. The federal government has, however, maintained that most of ASU's demand had been addressed, insisting that the strike was unjustified. Prominent Nigerian leaders, including the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar III, reaffirmed the critical role of traditional rulers in strengthening peace, unity, and inclusive governance across the country. They spoke at the opening of the National Council of Traditional Rulers of Nigeria (NCTRN) meeting held in Lagos. The meeting brought together monarchs, governors, and policy makers from across the Federation to deliberate on the theme, the traditional institution, the imperative of its inclusion in effective and efficient governance in Nigeria. The Sultan of Sokoto and co-chairman of the council, Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar III, called on Nigerians to rise above ethnic and political divisions to preserve national unity. The Sultan urged leaders at all levels to prioritize peace and dialogue over conflict, warning that no society thrives where mistrust and division dominate. He commended the Lagos state government for hosting the council's meeting, describing it as a symbol of inclusiveness and inter-ethnic harmony. In his address, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu emphasized that no government could thrive without the partnership of traditional rulers, whom he described as the true custodians of Nigeria's moral and cultural fabric. Governor Sanwo-Olu noted that Lagos State had long received the role by maintaining strong collaboration with its Council of Chiefs and Obas. He He reaffirmed his administration's commitment to empowering traditional institutions through policy inclusion and infrastructural support. No fewer than 21,000 Nigerians affected by flood disasters across the country are to benefit from federal government's interest-free loan totaling 6.3 billion. The Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Yusuf Sununu, disclosed this at a roundtable event to mark this year's International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction in Abuja. The event had in attendance Vice President Kashim Shettima, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives Benjamin Kalu, Governor Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State, lawmakers and international partners, amongst others. Minister Sununu said the intervention was to mitigate the impact of flooding in the country and address its consequences on food security. He also disclosed that the federal government has reached 8.1 million households with over 300 billion naira through the conditional cash transfer scheme. He disclosed further efforts to empower displaced persons through a scheme that would provide a ready market for their products. Speaking earlier, the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, said Nigeria, like many nations, continued to experience increase in frequency and intensity of disasters driven by climate change, conflicts, pandemics, and technological risks. According to her, these events are testing the limits of traditional emergency response system and demanding a more proactive, preventive, and well-refined disaster risk management framework. Mrs. Umar underscored the need to collectively rethink how to fund resilience to move from reactive ad hoc funding of disasters to a multi-stakeholder financing architecture that supports prevention, preparedness, and sustainable recovery. Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, and other stakeholders have called for the formulation and implementation of policies that promote the inclusion of the girl child across various sectors of society. They made the call at the 6th edition of the Osasu Show TOS Symposium held in commemoration of the 2025 International Day of the Girl Child. The event themed Girls Today, Leaders Tomorrow, Advancing Women Representation Through Policy took place at the National Assembly Library, Abuja. The symposium brought together top government officials, civil society organizations, women leaders, students, and members of the diplomatic community to deliberate on ways to improve the welfare, empowerment, and representation of the girl child. Stakeholders emphasized the need for policies that create an enabling environment for equal opportunities, allowing women to thrive, reach their full potential, and contribute meaningfully to national development. According to them, addressing long-standing inequalities in education, healthcare, leadership, and governance is essential to achieving balanced and sustainable development. The Deputy Speaker, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, who sponsored a bill seeking temporary reserved seats for women in the National and State Assemblies, described women's underrepresentation in the legislature as a clear sign of systemic imbalance. He noted that fewer than 200 women have served in Nigeria's parliament in the country's 60-year legislative history, warning that a nation that limits the potentials of its girls limits the progress of its democracy. He cited examples from African countries where deliberate legislative actions have led to greater female participation. Senegal 41%, South Africa 44.4%, Uganda 34%, and Rwanda 63.75%. The Deputy Speaker urged lawmakers to view the Women's Inclusion Bill not as a gender-based agenda, but as a national necessity, stressing that Section 42 of the Constitution supports affirmative action to correct historical imbalances. Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite, has called on the insurance industry to take a central role in mitigating the economic impact of climate change, warning that African economies are losing billions of dollars annually to climate-related disasters. This comes after Commissioner for Insurance Mr. Olusegun Ayo Omoseyin urged insurance and reinsurers across West Africa to innovate boldly, invest in climate data and technology, and expand microinsurance to reach the informal sector. Speaking at the West African Insurance Companies Association WICA educational conference ongoing in Lagos, Dr. Uzoka Anite, who was represented by Director Home Finance, Federal Ministry of Finance, Dr. Ali Mohammed, said said climate change could no longer be treated as merely an environmental concern, but as a financial emergency threatening national budgets and economic stability. The minister explained that the Nigerian Insurance Industry Reform Act (NIIRA) 2025 is a major step towards modernizing the sector and aligning it with the country's economic diversification goals. According to her, the new law strengthens the capital base of operators, enhances consumer protection, and expands compulsory insurance coverage to critical sectors such as agriculture, infrastructure, and environmental risk management. The Lagos state government has announced that it will begin full enforcement against illegal land reclamation and waterfront encroachment from today, following the expiration of a 7-day grace period granted to violators. The enforcement, led by the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources, was confirmed in a statement issued by Commissioner Tokunbo Wahab. Mr. Wahab said the move became necessary after 2 public notices were issued in national newspapers on September 18th and 19th, warning developers, individuals, and corporate bodies involved in unauthorized reclamation activities to halt operations or face legal consequences. According to him, the grace period officially ended on September 25, and the state can no longer delay enforcement. The commissioner added that any equipment or material found on sites without proper approval will be seized, and offenders will be prosecuted in line with the state's environmental and urban development laws. He noted that the state's actions are necessary to protect the environment, prevent flooding, and ensure public safety within the state. ComfortTV.channel's news returns shortly with business, foreign, and sports news. Many thanks for staying tuned. This is ComfortTV.channel news on business. Bank deposits with the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) grew by 568.7% year-on-year to 146.13 trillion naira in the first 9 months of the year, from 21.85 trillion naira in the corresponding period of 2024, indicating excess liquidity in the banking system. Trend analysis showed that banks' deposits in SDF rose sharply by 158.4% past quarter-on-quarter to 49.68 trillion naira in the second quarter of 2025, from 19.22 trillion in Q1 25. In Q3 25, banks deposited 77.23 trillion naira, up by 55.4%. The highest deposit of 50.73 trillion naira was recorded in September 2025. The continued strong patronage of the SDF reflects excess liquidity in the banking system and the effect of the CBN's shift to a single-tiered remuneration structure for the SDF last year. Last week, the Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) of the Apex Bank cut the MPR by 50 basis points to 27%. The CBN has 2 short-term lending windows for banks: the Standard Lending Facility (SLF) and repo lending. It lends money to banks through the SLF at interest rate of 500 BPs above the monetary policy rate (MPR), and it also lends money to banks through repo arrangements, which involves the purchase of bank securities with the agreement to sell back at a specific date and usually for a higher price. On the other hand, the CBN accepts deposits from banks through its standing deposit facility (SDF) and pays an interest rate of MPR minus 100 BPs. But banks borrowing through the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) standing lending facility (SLF) declined by 12.4% year-on-year to 69.37 trillion naira in the first 9 months of the year, from 87.09 trillion in 2024. The lowest value banks borrowed was 322 million naira in September 2025. The decline in banks borrowing from the CBN reflects liquidity constraints in the interbank money market. The Apex Bank conducted a liquidity mop-up through regular sales of open market operations, OMO treasury bills, during the period. Still on business, the price of premium motor spirit (PMS), otherwise known as petrol, increased by 6.8% to 955 naira per litre from 890 naira per litre sold last week. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) and stations owned by independent marketers in Lagos and Abuja showed that the petrol was dispersed between 900 naira and 955 naira per litre. Public Relations Officer of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria (IPMAN), Mr. Chinedu Okadike, attributed the hike in fuel price to supply and logistics challenges faced by major marketers in the industry, including NNPCL and Dangote Refinery. He explained that Dangote had increased its loading price to 845 naira per litre, up from the previous 825 naira, which had led to a selling price ranging between 900 naira and 955 naira, depending on the location. Mr. Ukadike further stated that NNPCL was supplying only its retail outlets and that the supply from Dangote was not sufficient for marketers. He added that many members who had paid for products from Dangote had been unable to load for about 2 weeks. He also mentioned that the scramble for products had caused a price hike, noting that some marketers who paid to purchase about 3 million litres from Dangote were giving only 1 million litres, as the refinery was reportedly rationing products amongst marketers. On the foreign scene, Madagascar's political crisis has intensified after President Andry Rajoelina reportedly fled the country following army defections and nationwide protests demanding his resignation. President Rajoelina, who had earlier refused to step down, faced mounting unrest fueled by severe shortages, rising prices and corruption allegations. The demonstrations, which began in the capital, Antananarivo, quickly spread across the country and have left at least 22 people dead in clashes with security forces. Sources indicate that the president may have departed Madagascar aboard a French military aircraft, though the French government has not confirmed this. His reported exit sparked celebrations in the capital, where thousands took to the streets, describing the moment as a new beginning for the nation. French President Emmanuel Macron has emphasized the need to uphold constitutional order, but stopped short of confirming Rajoelina's whereabouts. Madagascar, long troubled by political instability, now faces an uncertain future as the army and opposition weigh the next steps in the power vacuum left by the president's disappearance. Still on the foreign scene, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he will meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. on Friday to discuss his country's air defense and long-range capabilities. He said he will have meetings with some military companies in the U.S., adding that his schedule also includes meetings with members of the U.S. Congress. He pointed to an air defense and long-range capability as the main topics on his visit agenda, noting he would also have a meeting with energy companies, which he said was proposed by President Trump himself. President Zelensky and Trump held two phone conversations on Saturday and Sunday, respectively, and discussed strengthening Kyiv's air defense and long-range capabilities. Earlier this month, the U.S. president said he was close to deciding whether to send long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, which his Ukrainian said he requested in late September. Russian President Vladimir Putin has voiced concern over the U.S. sending Ukraine Tomahawks, arguing that this would destroy U.S.-Russian ties and lead to a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation. On sports, French football legend Zinedine Zidane has expressed his desire to one day manage the France national team. Speaking about his ambition, the former midfielder revealed that coaching Les Bleus remains one of his greatest dreams and that he continues to follow the national team closely with admiration and pride. Zidane, who famously scored twice in France's victory over Brazil in the 1998 World Cup final, remains one of the most iconic figures in French football history. As a player, he also inspired France to win the UEFA Euro 2000 title and was widely regarded as one of the most elegant and intelligent playmakers of his generation. The 53-year-old is widely tipped to become the next head coach of the French national team. He's considered the leading candidate to succeed Didier Deschamps, the 2018 World Cup winning coach, who is expected to step down after next year's FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Reports suggest that both the French Football Federation and fans would welcome Zidane's appointment, given his deep understanding of the game, his leadership qualities, and his emotional connection to the French shirt. While Zidane has not confirmed when he might take up the role, he made it clear that managing France will be an honor and a natural progression in his legendary football journey. Still on sports, England manager Thomas Tuchel has urged Marcus Rashford to make most of his potential, warning the Barcelona looney against wasting the talent that could make him out one of the best forwards in world football. Tuchel, who remains regular contact with Rashford, followed his summer loan move from Manchester United to Barcelona, believing that the forward possesses every quality needed to reach the top level but must show greater consistency in front of goal. The England boss is understood to have challenged Rashford to be more decisive in attack, insisting he needs to score and create more to fully realize his ability. Tuchel has also expressed concern that Rashford could one day look back on his career with regret if he fails to maximize his potential during his peak years. Rashford has made an encouraging start to life in Spain, recording 3 goals and 4 assists in 10 appearances for Barcelona. While Tuchel has been pleased with the early signs, he expects even more from the 26-year-old, believing he can rise to become one of the most complete forwards in the game. And that's our news bulletin for today. But before we go, here is a recap of our top stories. Federal government directs vice chancellors to submit attendance and compliance reports as varsity strike begins. Governor Sanwo-Olu and Sultan of Sokoto reiterate the role of traditional rulers in national unity. Federal government votes 6.3 billion naira interest-free loans to 21,000 flawed disaster victims. Deputy Speaker Kalu calls for policies promoting girl-child inclusions. On business news, banks deposit with CBN rises 568% to 146.13 trillion naira in 9 months. On the foreign scene, deadly protests forced Madagascar's president to flee. And on sports, Zidane speaks on France's job admission. Thanks for watching. For breaking news, exclusive interviews and more, follow us online at ComfortTV.channel on all platforms. Remember to like and share our videos, subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any updates. My name is Faith Kevin. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected.